Oh, man, Twitch. What are you doing, Twitch? Let's try one more time. I never have issues with Twitch. That's interesting. All right, well, we'll get Facebook in here and maybe no Twitch tonight. Huh, okay. Well, I am going to... would you message Chad while we're getting started here just to let him know that Twitch immediately had some issues? Yeah, welcome in, folks. Welcome in. It is time for an episode of Building the Broncos. The Broncos are being built right now. It is free agency is here. We had some new faces brought in, some old faces brought in, and free agency still going. So no moves today. Come on, what's going on? Close the gap here in the AFC, but no. So far, Broncos have had I think a pretty good free agency period, and really attacked one of the areas we entered this offseason saying they have to improve upon: the spine of the defense. Questions about what happens with DJ Jones with him leaving. Well, guess what, folks? Not leaving, and then linebacker and safety. Some questions still, given the availability of the two they brought in, but on the surface, I'd have to give the Broncos an A for what they've done so far. But how are you doing, Carl? As I'm sure you've messaged Chad by now about our Twitch issues. We don't want to leave our Twitch folks hanging.
Yeah, actually, when I signed in, it said that our Twitch is no longer active.
All right, well, good to see.
So I'm not sure what's going on there. But anyway, welcome in. Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been whirlwind of a first couple days. You know, I always kind of love, you got the coach speak or GM speak, George Payton going, hey, yeah, we're not going to be active early on. And, you know, we're going to kind of stay out of this. We're going to be more kind of those second tier contracts. And boom, they signed two big guys day one. So, you know, I mean, I think this is kind of that balance between Sean Payton and George Payton. You got one that's kind of more conservative, one that's just like, let's just throw funny money at them. Everybody that we can, if we possibly can. And Saints, man, what are they doing? They're still throwing funny money at people, even though they're like $80 million in the hole and having to redo contracts every year. So, but no, it's great to see for the Broncos. You know, I know some people asked George Payton, I think it was at the Combine, about some of the directions the Broncos would go. And I think one of them asked about, you know, hey, your run defense there towards December really kind of fell off a cliff. And George Payton tried to point towards like the whole season going, hey, yeah, we had a few bad games, but whole season we were really good. But I would say these first couple signings are a sign, yeah, we had some problems. And, you know, and it's not just the run defense, but these two both also help solve some of the issues in the coverage as well. So it's great to see. I love both signings. I mean, I'm worried, just both coming off some serious injuries. What's that going to do? They're not the most athletic guys. So if you leave them on an island, like sometimes Vance Joseph can do to his guys, it can lead to some big plays down the field. So I've got some worries, but I'm also excited. I would say the Broncos are better today than they were at the close of last season.
Yeah, and without a doubt, they've gotten better as far as the moves they're able to make. And you're bringing back pretty much everybody of note on defense, right? You don't have any major free agents leaving with DJ Jones coming back. And, you know, we did see, you know, against the Ravens and the Bills that the Broncos were defense. I don't want to say a mirage because those are two of the top 4 quarterbacks in football. And those offenses were very good. Obviously didn't end up being the last team standing in the AFC. But the Broncos still had room to improve. You know, they finished number 1 in EPA per play, I think 4th or 5th in DVOA. And they still had room to grow and become a little bit more dynamic. And one thing I love about these moves of Hufanga and Greenlaw is that you add a little bit more. It's a college analytic here, a college metric that some of the people more on the stats nerds things, you're starting to see it trickle over to the NFL, but they call it havoc rate. So plays on the football, you know, making those forced fumbles, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just turnovers, but plays on the ball, the havoc rate. And Greenlaw and Hufanga, when they were healthy and with the 49ers, obviously they were not Nick Bosa or Fred Warner, but that next tier of player on that unit. And we're not asking either of these guys to be the superstar for the Broncos either. So guys who can get their hands on the football, play with reckless abandon, and should be really exciting for the Broncos should they stay healthy. So excited to see what they can do, and excited to see everybody in the chat here. Also, as we are hanging out here talking the Broncos moves, those are the big ones. We also want to obviously talk about the guys that they have brought back besides DJ Jones and any rumors or anything we've heard so far. But of course, we got to say hello to the super chats coming in here. We got Papa Bear, David McElrath saying, good evening, Broncos country. Let's go, Bo. Yeah, let's go, Bo. So far, we have not seen moves that on the surface should really help Bo Nix like immediately, but you get more turnovers, you get shorter fields, those can certainly help Bo Nix. So the team, as Sean Payton said at the pre-combine press podium session, the team being better around Bo Nix helps Bo Nix. So that's these two should help with him. We also got Michael Ronquillo coming in and says Broncos have to find a new punter after Riley Dixon goes to Tampa Bay. Yeah, with Denver's lost a few guys here. We also got Michael Ronquillo saying good evening, Nick and Carl on building the Broncos. Go Bo Broncos. Yeah, so far, I guess the only guy that we know for sure that the Broncos outright lost on in the open market, so guys who actually reached the open market, is Riley Dixon. There was a deal from Denver. He had other interest out there, and he ends up going to the Buccaneers. You also have Sam Martin, former Bronco punter, going. I think he's going to Carolina. There's the punters going around. So we have to keep an eye on what goes on now with our guy Rizzy in Denver. But punter is the most obvious, like glaring. You don't have a punter right now, right? So like they have to do something at punter. I know there's a lot of Stonehouse talk from the Titans. He's a Colorado State guy. He's a little bit interesting because he's got a big leg, but he's got absolutely no control, right? So last season we had Riley Dixon do a pretty good job with like pinning teams in the 10 pretty consistently, but didn't have the biggest leg, just had a lot of control. Stonehouse is the opposite. He can boom it, but you're not going to get a lot of placement, the precision punter for those Madden players back in the day. And it's talking about back in the day, the boss. No, I'm just kidding. Chad, you're not old. It says, I may have missed this. What's your Broncos free agency grade through 2 days? Nick and Carl forever. Thank you so much, Chad, with the support. So far, I'd have to give the Broncos an A. You didn't break the bank on anybody. Obviously, the day one winners of free agency are often, you look back and you don't always love it. But bringing in Hufanga and Greenlaw, bringing DJ Jones back, which maybe was a little bit of an overpay, maybe by, 1.5, 2 million per year. But once the linebacker market dried up like it did before free agency, before the legal tampering period even opened, I don't mind it as much getting the gang back together there. So far I'd have to give them an A for what they've had to do, considering it is a less than ideal free agency market in general.
We got some, and understand we can't follow Twitter as much while we're doing the show. So if there's some big news that comes down, please put it in the chat so we can get on it and talk about it. I see somebody putting the red alerts. Does that mean something's happening? We'll find out, I guess, here. But please don't put any fake ones. They're like, oh, yeah, Evan Engram, he just signed with the Broncos. And yeah, that. So anyway, no, I'd say Broncos, you hit on the spots you needed to so far. I mean, there's still some other holes that you got to go get some things figured out.
Hi, Froze. Are you there?
Am I back?
I think it was me. I don't think it was
you. Okay.
I think it was me. Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, Broncos. It's great to see.
Oh, I guess it was you. Okay. Well, there you go. I can see. We can see you next. See, it was Carl. I thought it was me. I was looking at my feed and I was like, I guess it was me. Well, sorry about that, folks. But
sorry, I had some of the Facebook stuff running in the background. So I'm wondering if I just had a little bit too much going.
Too much juice. Yep. Got to use your phone, I think, maybe. So the Broncos brought in a wide receiver, apparently. So we're seeing that Trent Sherfield. I don't even know who this is, Carl. Any idea? You're the wide receiver guy. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Trent Sherfield.
I don't recognize the name either. I'm not sure exactly much
Minnesota
about.
Vikings.
I'll have to look into him a little bit more here. So sorry, guys, that we don't know much about this guy. Means he's probably just a back end player. Maybe he'll make the roster, maybe not.
2-year deal.
Dang, okay, special teams. I got a few people saying that he's going to be a special teams guy. Yeah, you just lost maybe the biggest loss so far, Trayvon Smith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know it stinks when you have a guy on your roster that is just specifically for special teams, but he was that good. I mean, that's why he just got the biggest special teams contract. That's not like punter, kicker, returner kind of thing. You know, just a specialist in NFL history. You've got to replace that. You cannot let your special teams fall off a cliff in trying to pay for your offense and defense. You know, we saw, I remember the biggest showing of this ever, I think, was the Chargers. They had 1 year where they were like top 3 in offense, top 3 in defense, and last in special teams, and they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much that can actually matter.
Yeah, without a doubt. So Trent Sherfield, yeah, it seems like a special teams addition. He has had 86 career catches, so then he's done some stuff. 30 years old, played the last season in Minnesota. I mean, he's just been a mercenary. He's played in the last 5 seasons. He's played with 5 different teams, Carl. Arizona, San Francisco, Miami, Buffalo, Minnesota, now Denver. So hopping around. We got a 2-year, $8 million contract, so we're going to keep an eye on that as well with him. And yeah, special teams matter. So Denver lost Smith. That number 1 is available, which is always interesting, but special teams really does matter for a team like this. So we'll see what happens with the Broncos. And speaking of special teams, also did want to say, talking about the punter, Mike Kliss a little bit ago had some insight that the Broncos went really hard, unfortunately, after a punter that he slips away. Denver wanted Dallas Cowboy punter Brian Anger today, but he's going back to Dallas after agreeing with the Cowboys for a 2-year, $6.4 million contract. So Denver been striking out so far in the punter market. A little bit unfortunate all in all, but we'll keep an eye on it, of course. And yeah, getting back to it, I didn't know if you got a grade. So Chad asked us for our grades on the signings so far. What are your thoughts on what Denver so far? What are the moves? Jarrett Stidham back, of course. You got Matt Peart back for the Broncos. You haven't seen any running back or tight end moves yet. We just got Trent Sherfield, wide receiver / gunner. You also brought back DJ Jones, Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga. I don't know if I'm missing anybody off the top. The long snapper, of course, Mitchell Fabroni. So we got that move as well. That's official today. But your thoughts on the Broncos move so far and any grade you give them?
Yeah, I have to go B+. I think you maybe did a little bit of a slight overpay for DJ Jones. The 2 main players that you brought in, Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, again, both coming off injuries, but they're both still young. And we've seen they can be incredible, productive guys. Like, it's not like they were average players before they got hurt. Like, we're talking all-pro, second-team all-pro, Pro Bowl level kind of guys. Are they going to be that here in Denver? We're going to have to find out. That's why I'm giving them a B+, where I think this could end up being that free agency class that gets you over the top. Mm-hmm. Because if they get back to that pre-injury ability, what they showed with the 49ers, oh my goodness, this defense could be really, really special if they stay healthy.
Yeah.
But there's so many ifs with this, you know, and I look at our roster right now, and there's a lot of guys that have some questions of, you know, even Riley Moss. Can he stay healthy for 17 games? We haven't seen it yet in the NFL. I'm a little nervous about that. You know, some of our guys, you know, linebacker Singleton, what's he going to be when he comes back from injury? He's 32 years old. Has he now lost a step because of this? So there's some definite questions with some of this, where the Broncos are taking a lot more risk this offseason than they have in past off seasons. You know, they did take a risk with Mike McGlinchey. He was coming off some injuries as well, and he's for the most part been pretty healthy, but he's still been banged up a few times for the Broncos. So I like it. I really do think the Broncos have seen where did they fail, especially against the Bills? You think of Ravens, Bengals, and Bills games. Those are the ones that I look at and say, hey, defense, these are where you were really struggling. And, the linebackers couldn't stop the run. Safeties struggled with, keeping up in the back end for big plays down the field. I guess Baltimore, I should throw that one in there as well.
Yeah.
And you needed some guys that could be multiple to keep people guessing what you're going to be doing on defense. And so you've done some great jobs of getting some guys that can hold up one-on-one if you need them to, allow you to blitz some more exotic blitz looks than maybe you were last year, because you can trust those guys to hold up. You brought a lot more intimidation to the team. Like Greenlaw and Hufano, they love to hit. It is fun watching those two go at it. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm happy about it. I still want to see a couple more moves before I'm willing to move this up to an A. If you go trade for Dallas Goedert, I'd probably move this up to an A-, just because he's got that inline tight end ability, allows you to really go after more different types of tight ends in the draft. I know a lot of people keep asking about Evan Engram. What's the update? Update is he's with the Chargers right now, doing an interview with them, going through their facility. And so I don't know who he's going to sign with. But even if he signs with Denver, here's the thing is I don't think they're really viewing him much as a true tight end. I mean, I guess a slot tight end, I guess is what you could call him, but slot wide receiver. He's going to be replacing little Jordan Humphrey, not one of our actual tight ends on the roster. And which you need an upgrade there. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. And he would be, but that doesn't actually solve your tight end issue if you sign him.
I mean, it gives you another big body option that can attack the interior and linebackers and safeties of the defense. But that doesn't mean Denver would be done addressing the position either, whether it be free agency or the draft, early in the draft. So it will be interesting to follow. But yeah, you're right. Again, the only thing I would say is maybe they slightly overpaid DJ Jones, and there's obviously risk for the guys they brought in, but that's why you got them both at injury discounts. You've had a track record now 2 seasons. I would argue that's still not a very robust sample size, but for 2 seasons you've hit above the watermark for injury rate. So we'll see if that trend continues for the Broncos and what they're doing with the strength and conditioning and their medical staff. But yeah, it's hard to be too upset with what they've done. And this team, I think they know that they're in the window. They kind of talk about that a little bit. George Payton, the Penner, of course, and Sean Payton. But this team is last year, 2 years ago, they were not thought of very highly. Obviously, one of the worst teams in football as far as the preseason win totals. And they were underdogs, but underdogs no more. And you know what? We still love underdogs here at Mile High Huddle.
Yeah. And of course, we got March Madness coming up. So this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, such as points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with the promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, and 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncbgambling.org. Arizona 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. So keeping it rolling here. Let's say hello to some people in the chat now that our internet is fully functional and we're hanging out. We got Ernie Mays in here saying go Broncos country. Dylan Von Arks, the one, the only. Good to see you, Dylan. Appreciate you. David Youngkins says, later, guys. Well, hello, goodbye. Good to see you. Appreciate you. Pro 16K, we know you. Doug says, I don't want to overpay for Engram if we're going to draft a tight end. I think that if the Broncos really, really wanted Evan Engram, they wouldn't have let him leave yesterday. But it sounds like they were not on the same page as far as the money. So he's going to see what else is out there. And that doesn't mean the door is closed by any means, but he wanted a little bit more, whether it might be another year on the contract. It could be guarantee differences. And I don't know, but there was a little bit of, they're not totally together on monetary, an agreement for Evan Engram. Otherwise he'd be here.
Yeah, I'm sure he sees himself pretty highly. And understandable. I mean, just a couple years ago, he put up some pretty darn good stats, over 100 catches, close to 1,000 yards. I mean, he had top 5 tight end kind of numbers. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure in his head, he's kind of going, that's the kind of money I expect. There's not any other tight end on the market that can compete with his kind of level at this point, especially with Juwan Johnson signing today with the Saints. So I'm sure he is kind of leaning into that. I've got the power. I'm hitting free agency. This is probably my last big payday, and I want to make sure that I get the most that I possibly can. And right now, when you've got 2 divisional opponents fighting each other over me, when he's got the Chargers and the Broncos kind of getting into a little bit of a bidding war, it might be one of those things where it's kind of like, the Broncos going, I don't want the Chargers to get him because we don't want to have to play him every year. Every time that we have to play the Chargers. So we're going to up our offer just to make sure the Chargers don't get that nice upgrade at a position that they need. So I'm sure he's playing into that a little bit. Now, the other thing, sometimes teams pivot when you do that. I always think of, I think it was 2014. The Broncos had, it's Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie for the cornerback position.
In like 2012?
Was it 20? No, it was 2014 because that was the year that they got Aqib Talib.
Okay, I thought they had Aqib for 2 seasons with Peyton. They didn't win it immediately. I don't remember. I thought he got destroyed in that 2013. You're right. I think the 2013 he was just terrible. Percy Harvin running around him, and then they signed Talib, and they had 2 years with Talib and Peyton.
Right. So and so DRC Broncos made him an offer, and he said, "I can get more on the open market. There's no way I'm signing for that." And the Broncos called up Talib day 1 of free agency and said, "Hey, here's our offer." And Talib said, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." And then DRC was out there in the open market and was like, "Oh, teams disagree. I'm not worth that." And he came back to the Broncos and was like, "I'll take that contract now." And they're going, "Nope, we just signed Talib." So, that's something he's got to be a little careful with here. That if you push these teams too far and they get a few days down the road or even another day, Broncos might go, "Yep, let's go get a trade here." As Shiloh says, what does Goder's cap hit look like in a potential trade? Broncos would have to rework their contract. I think next year his cap hit is something like $23 million is his base salary. So there would be a new contract if the Broncos made that kind of deal. But he would be a great one for the Broncos. And they've got 3 6-round picks. Eagles might be going, "Yep, we'll take that so we can get some of this money off the books and keep things going." I could definitely see the Broncos pivot that way.
I'm not a cap expert by any means, but I'm over here at Spot Rack looking at Dallas Goedert's contract. He signed a new contract in 2021. He is, let me see if I can find his age here. Not seeing that at the top, but he's got to be, pushing, there it is, 30 years old. So a little bit concerned about, maybe paying him a big contract. God, I can't believe he's already 30. That's crazy. But we're getting old, Carl. But he's entering the last year of his contract. So what I think is happening here is that he's like, why would the Eagles in a window let Goddard look for a trade? Well, I think he wants a new contract because he's on the last year of his contract here. They have 2 void seasons on the contract because that's what the Eagles do. Works for them, doesn't work for the Saints, I guess. But he's probably going to get a trade, and it looks like here his cap hit would be $12 million for whoever brings him on. But he's wanting a new contract. So whoever trades, what's the cap hit look like? I'm sure that any trade is immediately followed with a new contract for him since it's the last year of his contract, because that's the only thing that adds up is why he would even be looking for a trade. He wants a new contract. They said, go see what else is out there. So what does that mean? It's not even the salary, the cap pick compensation where they're looking for a 4th round pick, supposedly. Same with Mark Andrews. I'm fine giving that up, especially like right now, the wins are saying that Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren not likely to make it to 20. We'll see if that comes to fruition a month and a half from now. But my concern isn't so much like 4th round pick for one of those guys in the window the Broncos are in right now, get 3 years of good tight end play. Sure, sign me up. But each of those guys, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, are going to be looking for a new contract. And what does that look like when you are also talking about Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Cortland Sutton, Jonathan Franklin Myers, and now you add Dallas Goedert to the mix? I'm not against it by any means. I think those are Andrews and Goddard are both good plays, but are you losing somebody at that point because of that? So I think it's more of a cap and future cash handouts consideration for the Broncos, bringing on one of those guys, as opposed to not wanting to give up a 4th round pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think, like I said, I think he'd be a nice player to add, but I probably only want him on a 2-year contract so that you can maybe be trying to figure out some of the cap stuff with those other contracts where Zach Allen, maybe big cap hit is hitting year 3, year 4. And so then you can work some things around to make all these guys work. We got a window. You got to take advantage of it. I remember telling, and I'm not saying that this is where the Broncos are at, but I remember telling Raiders fans when they had Derek Carr on his rookie contract, I told him, I said, you better go all in on this contract here, because once he gets paid, it is going to be really tough for your team to be successful. And now I think Bo Nix has the real possibility to be much better than Derek Carr was, but Derek Carr was actually a pretty darn good quarterback. I mean, he wasn't top 10, but he was in that next tier of guys. And so you see all these other teams really loading up. Washington right now, surrounding Jaden Daniels, making these trades. You see Chicago's been a big spender to really build that offensive line for Caleb Williams. Obviously, Patriots had to spend no matter who their quarterback was, but they've kind of gone big too. So I'm glad to see the Broncos getting pretty aggressive, and I could see this trade being that next big thing that they do.
Yeah, well, if Evan Engram does not land here and where the tight end market is at, I could see it being even a draft day or a day 2 of the draft kind of thing that happens for the Broncos, where okay, we'll see how the draft falls. Maybe they even try to make a small move up for Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland if they slide. And if that doesn't happen, okay, we pivot now to bringing in one of those veterans and giving them a potential contract. So things in motion. We'll see how it plays out. A lot of hurdles before we get to that point. Never a hurdle. Phil McLaughlin coming in says, good evening, Nick, Carl, and Deacon Scott. What does tendered mean? I see McMillan. I couldn't read for a second. McMillan and some others listed that way. So there are, I don't know exactly who gets designated for this. Most of the time it's undrafted free agents, but I think you can have guys that maybe you picked up off waivers also that could qualify for this. Not outright free agent signings, but guys who were waived and picked up can also qualify as being tendered. So these are your undrafted free agents that they're in a different process of how their contracts line up. So right now, I think this is what McMillan's, did he just finish his 3rd season in the NFL? I believe, as an undrafted free agent. So this year, he's a exclusive rights free agent. So they're going to pick that up. Almost every team picks up exclusive rights free agents. After that, you get restricted free agents and then unrestricted free agents. So a lot of times that's your undrafted free agents. I remember a few years ago, Broncos had this with Chris Harris Jr. There was remember the Broncos did not use the restricted free agent on Philip Lindsay as well. I believe that's how it played out. So it has to do with if you're a unrestricted or if you are a undrafted free agent for the most part. There might be some other players who can qualify if you picked them off waivers. And I don't know if that mattered if they were undrafted before or not.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for the question, Phil.
You probably could have read McMillan better the first time. David Kilgore comes in and says, hey guys, came in late. Was wondering if we're going to go after Cooper Kupp. Yeah, the Broncos, I mean, I don't know. They just brought in a wide receiver. So now your room all of a sudden is a little bit more full, right? So you got Cortland Sutton, you got Vele, you got Franklin, you got Mims, you got Sheffield that they just brought, Sherfield. Excuse me, that's going to take some work to get right. Sherfield also. What's going on with Will Jordan Humphrey?
A.T. Perry?
What was that?
A.T. Perry?
I mean, some of these guys are like the same with LeJordan Humphrey, probably more practice squad elevation candidate types, but
yeah,
room is getting a little full. I don't think that keeps you from trying to go get a Cooper Kupp, so to speak. But at the same time, unless it's just coach speak, which it could be, but you're probably talking about a Troy Franklin or a Vele being on the chopping block with that kind of thing. Maybe Sherfield, who you just signed, could also be that guy, but those other guys don't play special teams. And if you're the 4th, 5th, or 6th wide receiver, you better damn well be offering some special teams. Somebody's got to go out there and do it. So there's still avenues, but it just makes the younger guys that they keep talking up a little bit more precarious.
Yeah, I would say if you bring in Kupp, it's probably a sign that you don't believe in one of those young guys. You know, Troy Franklin, after his rough rookie season, maybe you're kind of going, we made a mistake and we've got to pivot quickly. And, you know, Cooper Kupp, if you can get him on what just Hopkins got, 1 year, $6 million deal, and you're kind of going, we've got to win now. We can't wait for these young guys to maybe hopefully become something for us. I could maybe see the Broncos going in that kind of direction and just, you know, maybe it's not even a sign that they don't like Troy Franklin. It's just they're going, we've got to go now. And Cooper Kupp offers a lot more right now to help our young quarterback. And he does a lot of things that you want that you don't have at the wide receiver position right now. You know, his ability to get open in a hurry, hit on those short intermediate plays, yards after catch, you know, that's his game. And he can still win over the top. I mean, it's not as big a part of his game as it was a few years ago, but if you need him to, he could be skilled enough to go do that for you. So I do think the Broncos would probably at least make a phone call, ask him, hey, how much you wanting? And it'd probably be one of those where he has to believe the Broncos are in a good spot, because I'm guessing another team would make a bigger offer.
Yeah, for sure. So we're still monitoring Kupp, and we'll see what happens. We see you got Clayton in here. Hey. Smash that like button and share, guys. We appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are good. We got James says, hey, guys, how would you feel about Travion Henderson was drafted by the Broncos? I'd like Henderson. The big question with Henderson, and nothing came out of the combine. That doesn't mean the Broncos didn't medically flag him, but he had a foot injury that caused him to lose a year and a half of good play, and it looked like he was finally healthy again towards the end of this season. He's probably somebody who's always going to have to be in a split backfield, but that really doesn't bother me so much with Sean Payton. Now, is he worth the 20th overall pick? I'm a little bit I mean, running backs have made a comeback, but they're still depreciated, especially with such a stacked class. So like at pick 51, sign me up as long as they're medically cleared. Will he make it that far? I don't know. We'll see. But pick 20, it's a little rich for me, given his questionable tackle breaking ability and the injury history.
So let me put a scenario out to you.
Okay.
Let's say Broncos do trade a 6th-round pick for Goddard, so you solve your tight end position, and maybe you can use another 4th-round pick on another player that you hope to develop at the position.
At tight end?
Yeah, a tight end. You bring in Cooper Kupp to help you with that wide receiver spot as well. Is there a scenario that you'd be okay with? Let's say you go Amari and Hampton, pick 20, Travion Henderson, pick 51. How would you feel about that?
It's a little much. I think that's probably a little bit redundant. I like both. I mean, it's fun. If you could talk about like trading down from 20 to 30 and then getting Hampton and getting more picks there, but I still think you need to add, this team needs to add another linebacker still. I mean, you talk about 2 guys that are older. You got, of course, Singleton, last year of his contract, older as well. I don't think this is probably the end of the road for Singleton in Denver this season. You're still set to lose 3 of your top 4 interior defensive linemen. Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen with Nick Benito. You need to find a guard center development option there. Wide receiver still on the table as well. Do you love your pretty darn small, lacking length edge room? Do you want to diversify there as well? We talked about your interior nose. We already talked interior defensive line, but 2 of your guys are set to hit free agency at the 3, 4-eye, 5 technique. last season the Broncos were really interested in Tavondre Sweat, want to trade up for him even. Do you still look for a more classic two-gapping nose tackle to, again, diversify what you can do up front right now? Because right now, Denver, like, good run-stopping unit last season. A lot of that's because you have Surtain, so you can send more bodies at the problem than almost any other team. But maybe you still want somebody with a little bit more two-gapping other than your fire hydrant, stubby Malcolm Roach, DJ Jones, who are good in their roles, don't get me wrong, but you're not asking them to play across multiple gaps very often. So I don't know. I just think it's, especially in this class, you could probably find a running back in the 6th round, or 4th round, trade down. I just don't think, I think 20 and 51 is a little bit too much when there's just other avenues to add talent to this team, and you can still get another good running back later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I just, I love both running backs, and they both bring a little something different to the table. Henderson, that Joker kind of guy that can win in the receiving game out of the backfield. Great blocker as well. Omari and Hampton as well. He's a great blocker, big time bruiser up the middle. So it's kind of forming that Detroit Lions backfield. You're trying to create it for yourselves. And I mean, I would love it, but you're right. That's not a great allocation of resources, especially for a position that historically in the NFL has not been worth that kind of investment. Yeah. I know Sean Payton loves him, but still, it's one of those things. You got other holes that you want to fill. You need some young talent coming up at other positions.
Yeah, true. We got Phil McGoffin says, guys, Broncos showing interest in Denzel Perryman, Juwan Johnson, and Justin Hardy. Who is realistic and who would help most? Well, Juwan Johnson's been signed by the Saints, so he will not be helping us. And the Denzel Perryman stuff felt like it was upstream from Dre Greenlaw being signed. So Denzel Perryman was a fallback option when the Texans and somebody else, maybe it was even the 49ers, were potentially going to get Greenlaw. As far as Justin Hardy, potentially, but I guess who would help the most? It's probably Justin Hardy, because the other two seem to be, but one of them is definitely not an option. And Perryman seemed to be an option prior to signing Greenlaw. But thank you so much for the stars, Phil. Appreciate you coming in. We also got Glenn Ashley coming in, says, good morning, Nick, Carl, and Deacon Scott. And saying good morning because he's across the big pond, the Pacific there. What a start to free agency. Peyton delivered a KO punch, beefing up our secondary with 2 absolute dogs. Legitimate chance to be the number 1 defense in the game. A big thing for the Broncos defense, just because defense is volatile and the stat that they were number 1 in last season is volatile as well, I don't expect them to break again the all-time franchise sack record. It just seems not likely to do that back-to-back seasons. But they do have a chance to be, I think, a top 5, top 7 defense is good. The big question is going to be, can they stay healthy? And can you continue to get the level of play that we saw from some of these guys that we had last season? I mean, John Franklin Myers, career year. Zach Allen, career year. Nick Benito, career year. Jonathan Cooper, career year. Riley Moss, career year. Brandon Jones, career. I mean, it's just, can they take it to another level? Possibly. But we all know growth is a little bit more kind of like what the stock market is right now. Maybe hopefully a little bit more up, a lot more up than that. But they have a chance to be the number 1 next season for sure. I wouldn't be against them continuing to add pieces on the defensive line either. I know that some people think the draft now is going to be all offense, and maybe it is, but I don't think it's ever a bad idea to continue to throw premium assets in the pass rush and the big uglies up front. Although the defensive linemen now, how they're built, some of them are not big uglies anymore. That's for sure. They're just bigs. But yeah, really do have a chance to be the number 1 defense.
I think the thing that I feel much better about our defense for this year compared to last year, like the Broncos did great against average and bad offenses. But when they started playing some of the more elite offenses, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Buffalo, you saw this huge decline for them. Mm-hmm. They just really, when teams could be multiple against them, that they had strong run games and could pass, the Broncos just didn't have the horses to hold up. I feel this year, if these guys stay healthy, you've got a better chance to stand up against some of these guys. Trey Greenlaw can hang with this a tight end running down the field, where last year I'm sorry, Barton. He had his moments. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he had some incredible plays.
What a
But he also
contract!
had,
Also, Cody Barton, congrats to you. I
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
believe that,
great
and
for
I'm
him.
happy it wasn't us, but good for you, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate it. He stepped in, like I said, made some major plays and big moments for the Broncos, but there was also a lot of plays where he was out of position and teams picked on him. You know, Justin Cernod, he got put into a bad position of having to start when he really wasn't built to be a starter. And he had his moments as well. But again, another guy that found himself out of position, especially in the run game, where if he got blocked, like he was getting blocked out of the play. So it's either he wins the spot or he's gone. And it led to, especially like that Bills game, where you just saw them pushing our guys 7 yards back because our linebackers couldn't hold up. So if Singleton and Greenlaw can stay healthy, like that changes the numbers there for the Broncos and how they can get after the run game. So I do feel better about playing better offenses than I did last year.
And honestly, this Broncos, it depends on what metric you look at, and I really hate like points per game because that's going to depend on your special teams and offense. Like the Broncos last season, worst offense in football in terms of 3-and-outs per game. Made it harder on the defense. Defense, though, bailed out a little bit because special teams was pretty good, and it's all connected. So your points per game is not always the most indicative because everything depends on everything. So I prefer DVOA, EPA per play, success rate, stuff like that. Teams use those more often as well. But as far as like what can be number one defense, I would think adding some offensive efficiency, specifically in the run game, can help the defense a lot as well. I mean, getting out of being the number one 3-and-out rate offense in football, that'll help a heck of a lot. And I think a lot of that can come back to just the running back position being better. And it's not going to be hard to be as bad rushing the football as they were last season from the running back position specifically. Now, offensive line, they're top 10 run blocking unit, top 3 pass blocking unit. They're good. Wattenberg's a little bit fine on that front, but they're good there. I think running the ball honestly has a good of a chance to help them be a number one defense this year if they can be complementary. Although I'm a little bit worried about the punter situation now, of course, right? It all comes together with stuff like that. We got Camden coming in, says, hi, guys. Could you see the Broncos trading for a backup linebacker like Bobby Okereke, or could you see them signing someone like EJ Speed? I think right now you could see the Broncos bring in – the issue, again, with some of these guys is like you're talking about your second-string linebacker. Guess what they're going to have to do? Special teams. You're not having Dre Greenlaw play special teams with his injury history. Probably not having Singleton coming off injury doing that. So I don't know if I see them bringing in a expensive veteran, unless somebody who has some special teams history and can project there. But I think you're more likely to see Denver maybe bring back Justin Strnad and then also draft somebody at some point. So that would round out the room and see what you can do with Drew Stevens. From what I've heard, we'll see about Drew Stevens. I haven't heard the most glowing. I haven't heard the most glowing stuff. Or excuse me, what did I say? Drew Sanders.
Stevens.
Yes, yeah, Drew Sanders. I haven't heard the most glowing stuff about some of the classroom stuff with him. So we'll see how that works for linebacker. But I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think you're probably talking a little bit more like a Justin Strnad type and then draft, especially with what the linebacker market did this offseason.
So let me pivot to a different position here. What would you do with PJ Locke?
I'd probably offer him a reduced salary, maybe a renegotiation, give him another year on it and lower the cap hit and give him just a few more guaranteed dollars on there and see if he wants to stick around still. If not, I'd be okay moving on. I think he's fine as a third safety for Denver, but he's expensive for a third safety as well.
Yeah, I think my big concern there, Brandon Jones missed a couple games last year, getting banged up. Vanga obviously missed some time the last couple years. So having a true backup safety that you can trust to go out there and probably play at least a few games a year, kind of important. I think there's a chance one of those two guys is probably going to miss a couple games. And we saw last year, Brandon Jones, when he went down for a couple games, Not saying that he was the difference between us winning the Baltimore game and not, but Devin Key, when he came in, it was bad. Like Baltimore had a great plan to say, hey, we're going to go challenge this backup guy. We're going to go right at him and see if he can hold up, if he can stay in position. We're going to run play action, see if we can get him to take that false step. And if he does, we win over the top. If he doesn't, then we're just going to run the football like crazy because he's hesitating and staying back. And so I just, if Devin Key's our backup plan or Skinner next year, I'm a little bit nervous about that kind of plan. Oh, I think you're muted. Oh, I'm
still muted. Goodness gracious. Man, technical difficulties today. Still getting over hand, foot, and mouth disease. So a little bit of coughs here and there. Yeah, I got that. A lot of fun, folks. Thank you, Camden, for the super chat. I saw William a few times. He's asking, hello from Sydney. Awesome. Really great. Third pick for Njoku. That's too high for me. Talking fourth rounder. I'd rather dabble with Andrews and Goddard in the fourth round pick. And I don't know if Cleveland's selling, but I'd be interested. I don't know if the contract is tradable for them. Also, he asks about Hendrickson. I think you probably can't do Hendrickson with all the thing about all these trades is Denver has all these own guys that they got to work on for a contract. So he's a great player. I don't know if it makes sense because Denver is going to be playing Allen and Benito / JFM here soon. I don't know if you pay both of those guys. So we'll see. Douglas comes in here, $5 super chat. It says Broncos need an upgrade at center. Any ideas? Talking my language here, Douglas. I think though you're probably more so looking round 3, round 4, one of your round 6 picks for a developmental guy. You probably live with the Jag, just a guy that is Wattenberg this season. Maybe you have a competition with Forsyth as well, and you're fine having him be your worst offensive lineman. It'd be great to have an all-pro there, but I think you're okay there, and you're looking about what's after him right now. I think that's the bigger question is how are we setting ourselves up this offseason to replace Wattenberg so we're not out here having to pay freaking Drew Dahlman the second highest paid center contract. You do not want to be in that position.
Yeah, I think the only way right now that you could really upgrade that position would be the draft. Mm-hmm. You've already paid all 4 of the other offensive linemen big money. If you're paying all 5, it really limits what you can do on the offense. And so having that center contract, that's a rookie deal. Like right now he's playing up to his contract and beyond.
Fifth round pick. You're good. Yeah.
And he's a great pass blocker. He's got decent chemistry with Bo Nix. And I think if you get a decent running back there, it probably helps improve the entire offensive line with their run blocking grades. Just because you've got a running back that knows how to take advantage of how they're trying to block it. I've said it before. There was plays last year where you saw the offensive linemen getting frustrated. Like they'd see the running back getting tackled going, what are you doing? Like we blocked it. Perfect. This is the place for you to go. I remember Bolts like standing over, I think it was Javonte Williams at one point, just being like pointing to the hole. Be like, dude, right there. And so there's a lot of frustration that way. And so I think just another year, offensive line, it's great to see that it's one of those positions you can really see that progression. Sometimes you get a Ryan Clady who is an all-pro rookie year. Well, like that's the kind of level he played at. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty rare. It's usually kind of that growth process like we've seen with Nick Benito. He's a great example of that kind of guy of every year has gotten a little bit better at his position. The Broncos Paradis at the center position. Rookie season, he was on practice squad. Then became a starter, was an okay guy. And the next year, he was a really good center for the Broncos. So you're kind of hoping to see that here. And I think it's possible. I think he could have a great year and be one of those emerging guys that you're going, oh, wow. Yeah, Broncos, way to go. They've got 5 guys across the offensive line and not have a huge weakness among any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, you can look back at the Broncos centers. Historically, it's the lowest paid offensive line position, and it's one that they've had guys on practice squads before they've elevated them. So you're thinking Broncos probably want to find their 2026 starter, 2027 starter in this draft, if possible. So I know the Broncos did interview officially Marcus Bowe, Purdue right tackle, potentially center. He's somebody who's interesting. I mean, Denver wouldn't be shocking. Sean Payton really prioritizes the offensive line and has been somebody who's prioritized the interior offensive line well before it was in vogue. So we'll see what happens there. David Kilgore, what are the Broncos going to do at punter? Stonehouse is out there. I don't know. We're going to see. I have not paid too much attention to the punter market because I had just assumed that they'd bring Dixon back. But now that it feels like kind of musical chairs for punter, not as many chairs left and not many people playing still. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. It could be, God, I would be so mad if we have a good team this year and the punter costs us games. Nothing drives me more nuts than bad special teams play. Jeez. Goodness, I'm gonna say bad things on here. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for the super chat, David. We're keeping an eye on it. The Broncos did go after Anger, who ended up going back to the Cowboys instead. So I do trust Rizzy, but this might be a rough year at punter. The concern level is rising on that one for sure. Jeremy comes in and says, probably the last one here, unless we get some big super chats, says, who do you guys think the Broncos believe in more, in Audric or Jaleel? I'd guess Jaleel. I think that they don't have to believe in either of them right now because they're both on the roster, and Broncos are going to bring in 2 more running backs, and it's going to be the Joker scene, snapping the pool cue over the knee, saying we're having tryouts. One of these, there's going to be 1 roster spot, maybe 2, but 1 roster spot. Compete. Best man gets the job. I mean, probably that's a way to kind of put in my own propaganda spin on that, but probably Jaleel because of the ball security stuff. But on the other hand, Audric was a pick of this regime and Jaleel wasn't, I don't believe. So he might have been, it might have been the pick year before. I don't recall, but ball security stuff makes me think Jaleel, but they're both going to have a chance to prove it and earn it this offseason or this preseason lead up to the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with Audric is you've got a little bit more cost control for years. Mm-hmm. You've got 3 more years of cost control. Jaleel, I think this is his last year of real cost control for you. So that could be a difference maker there. It could also be just what kind of running backs do you go get? Mm-hmm. If you get the speed guys like a Henderson, Jaleel, you're probably out the door. Or I mean, he could be even a practice squad guy just in case you got some injuries that come about. I don't see a ton of NFL other teams going, yep, let's go get that guy. You know, he's okay. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. There's a reason the Broncos keep talking about the running back position. There's a reason that we're talking about maybe drafting 2 guys because they have that many spots open for them right now. But if you go get, let's say in the first round, Amari and Hampton, it's not going to be great for Estime because he's not taking snaps away from that guy other than, you know, garbage time, game's over anyway, and you're not wanting your guy to get injured. So it'll be interesting to see how the Broncos play that position. I don't think they're panicking by any means yet. We haven't really even seen them get involved in any free agent running backs conversations, which doesn't bother me one bit. I don't want to pay some of those veterans big time money when you've got this great running back class coming up.
Yeah, without a doubt. We'll see. Broncos are still going to make some moves. They're going to bring in tight end. I'm guessing they're going to sign a running back at some point. But, you know, I'm more interested now, Carl, that we've got linebacker and safety signed. We got DJ Jones back. I'm more so curious about the 20th overall pick. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. And also what the market has said this season and what it could do for the signings of Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Cortland Sutton, because this season, a lot of teams had money to play, bad free agency market, a lot of big contracts. Is there going to be a little bit of distance between the camp of the Broncos players and where the Broncos are at? Because $25 million for Allen and $23 million for Bonito, that was yesterday's prices. I don't know what today's prices are after free agency this season. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see. Michael Ronquillo closing us out here saying, great show tonight, Nick and Carl on Building the Broncos. Go, Bo Broncos. Salute to you. Gosh, you guys are killing it today. No big news for the Broncos today, but still a lot of good things to think about. Just stay healthy. Hopefully those good vibes keep rolling. Papa Bear in here, Michael Ronquillo a few times. I got the boss man Chad, Phil McLaughlin, of course, David Kilgore a couple times, Camden coming in here, Douglas Wall. He asked about a few center prospects as well. I mentioned Marcus Embo, Gray Zabel. If he even makes it to pick 20, do you want to use pick 20 on a center? I mocked it once just for the thought exercise of it, but I'd probably be more interested in, let's say, the top 3 tight end, running back guys are gone. I'm more interested in pass rush or wide receiver at that point. And also Jeff Wilson had an unbelievable combine, only 1 year of play at Georgia, but he's one of the best center interior offensive line athletic profiles we've ever seen. So he's interesting. Not a good center draft though. I think those are the 3 that stand out for me, unless somebody moves in from guard or tackle that I'm forgetting right now. But those are the guys right now. And Broncos had an official visit with Marcus Bowe. So he's an interesting one. Plays tackle like a basketball player. Got some interesting feet. Pretty cool player. Any thoughts? Any centers? How much center work have you done, Carl?
Not a whole lot. I've been defensive line, tight end, wide receiver, running back have been kind of my main focus, with that being where the Broncos are certainly looking. And we got Patrick, of course, coming in saying, aloha, boys. Good to see you, Patrick. Thanks for coming in. And we did have the little bit of news for the Broncos, signing a wide receiver, Trent Sherfield, mostly a special teams kind of guy, your Traymon Smith replacement. The Broncos not wanting to see that position take a nosedive. When you've already got punter questions, you don't want to have specialist questions as well. So I think that's decent for the back end of the Broncos roster. You want those guys that can help on special teams. So that kind of answers that question for you. And Broncos still doing a lot of work. Tight ends are talking to them. I do know that they've been talking about a couple veteran running backs, just somebody to bring in to, if you're putting all your eggs in a basket of a rookie coming in and being a star day one, sometimes it's a little bit iffy to do. So I know. And then we got the Cooper Kupp news. He should be released tomorrow. So he'll be able to come visit the Broncos. Possibly even within the next couple of days, we could see him signing somewhere. So plenty more of free agency to go. Even the signings aren't official even until tomorrow. So we're just getting going, guys. Thank you guys for coming in tonight. And make sure you guys are tuning in with Mile High Huddle, both on the website and here watching our shows morning and evening, because we got a lot of information to be covering. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, appreciate everyone. Make sure you're following Carl and I on Twitter. Carl's at Carl Dumler MHH. I'm at Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And of course, subscribe, like, and share, as that ticker says there underneath. Shout out again to all our super chat folks. We'll see you guys later. Have a great one. Choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.